United States, fear has given way to grieving and soul-searching after the arrest of the man suspected of killing 9 Charleston churchgoers late on Wednesday evening. Vigils have been taking place across the nation, with Charleston residents coming together to light candles and pray outside the site of the massacre, the Emanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. More memorials are scheduled to take place this evening. But as police qualify the killings as a hate crime, anger is mounting at what is the latest in a string of race-related incidents. Described as a white supremacist and a high school dropout, the suspect, identified as 21-year-old Dylann Roof, was caught at a traffic stop in North Carolina and flown back to Charleston just hours later. Now, according to law enforcement officials cited by CNN, the young man has now confessed to the killings. Diptyka Laurent has more on what appears to have been a premeditated attack.
From a shy high school dropout to a suspect in America's worst race crime in decades, friends of Dylann Roof say he had radically changed in the lead-up to Thursday's attack on an African-American congregation in Charleston. In this photo posted on Facebook, the young man is wearing a jacket with 2 pins, including one of a South African apartheid-era flag.
I knew him for 7 years, but I felt like I knew him then, but whenever we reconnected in this last month, I felt like I didn't know that Dylann. He was just wasn't the same. He was more quiet, more solo, still under the radar like always.
When they did get back in touch, Joey Meek says Dylann Roof would rant about the controversial killings of African Americans Trayvon Martin and Freddie Gray, and during drinking sessions spoke of a plan to hurt people.
It was a plan. He said that he was planning it for 6 months. He had told me that it was that the black people were taking over the country, and that he wanted it to be segregation, that white on black, or white with the white and the black with the black.
Roof grew up in a small town in South Carolina with a majority of African Americans. On his Facebook page, which has now been taken down, he had several black friends. Police had questioned him in February after he was reported to be asking questions about security at a local shopping mall. And in April, his friend said he purchased a .45 caliber pistol with his birthday money. But it's not known what kind of weapon was used in Thursday's shooting.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by International Affairs Editor Douglas Herbert. Doug, hello. It's hard not to empathise with President Obama's visible frustration. Every shooting only appears to reinforce the hold of American gun culture.
Yeah, and you just said it, the frustration. There was a sense of weariness and resignation alongside the anger that we saw. There was one U.S. reporter, he actually estimated that this was about the 14th time Barack Obama has had to solemnly walk into the White House briefing room, stand before Americans after a mass shooting. And in the past, he might have been able to think with conviction that he could change something. He's the president of the U.S. after all. You'd think, the most powerful man in the country. If he can't do something, who can? And he's reached the point where you could almost see the exasperation, where he just feels like he's been blocked. There was a time back in December, after December 2012, and the Sandy Hook shootings in Newtown, Connecticut. You'll remember 20 school children killed, 6 adults. It was seen as a turning point. Everyone was saying, if this doesn't change things, if this isn't the game changer on gun control, what will be? And for a few months, it seemed that it would be. And then all of a sudden, what happened? 5 months after gun proposals to try to have better checks on the sale of guns, check people's backgrounds, just make, certain conditions about the types of guns that could be sold, it died in the Senate. Why did it die? Senate Democrats basically torpedoed it. Why did they do it? Under pressure from the National Rifle Association, biggest gun lobby in the U.S., the NRA. This happens time and again. You have a period, a torrent of emotional outrage, an upsurge, an outcry. We will change things. This is the game changer. This time it will happen. It hasn't. I just said this was the 14th time Barack Obama has been before the American people. He's the president of the United States, and essentially acknowledging now in the sort of home stretch of his presidency that even he does not really have the power from his bully pulpit at this point to really change things the way he had hoped to, perhaps, at the very beginning.
Okay, so it hasn't changed, but have American attitudes budged at all?
At all, yes. And in fact, the most recent polls by the Pew Research Center, which does a lot of these types of polls of American, public opinion, shows that, if anything, attitudes about guns have hardened in a way, which might seem ironic in light of what we were just talking about. Recent one that came out back in April, representing a survey done in December 2014, shows that for the first time ever since these polls were taken, a majority of Americans, slim majority, 52%, actually would prefer to defend the right to carry and own a gun than a minority which says it's more important to fight for gun controls, 46%. That's really swung. It wasn't like that a few years ago. Perhaps even more surprising, same survey showing that of all these people who keep guns at home, there are 300 million guns in America, population of 315 million. Some people have 1 or 2 guns at home. Of all those people, 2/3, 66%, see the gun in their house as making them more safe, as opposed to 30% that see the gun as a potential, something that potentially puts them more in danger.
That's right, it's a self-defense.
A self-defense. But what's interesting about those statistics is about 15 years ago, 1999, 2000, it was exactly the reverse. More people saw guns as potentially putting you in danger than as making you safe. So it's a very interesting hardening of attitudes here.
Well, going back to the Charleston killings, this is being qualified as a hate crime. Is that a strong enough handle, do you think?
A lot of people are saying right now, and this is provoking a debate in America, why aren't people using the word terrorism? I'll read you the definition in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Terrorism is the use of force or threats to demoralize, intimidate, or subjugate. A lot of people say that is the dictionary perfect definition here. They see a lot of hypocrisy. They see a lot of double standards, that if you have a Muslim go on a rampage, if you have ISIS, the Islamic State group, if you have Al-Qaeda, it's instantly terrorism. The Boston Marathon bombing, instantly all the mainstream media was calling it terrorism. The bombing in not the bombing, but the shooting attempt in Garland, Texas, at that anti-Muslim free speech event recently, that was labeled by a lot of people potential terrorism event. They're saying, why is it when it's against blacks, anti-black violence, is it almost never, especially when it's a white person suspected of doing it, is it almost never labeled a terrorist act, an act of terrorism? The suspect in this case, Dylann Roof, has been, a lot of the people you speak to, he says, he was a very quiet individual. Initial reports said he was a clean-shaven white male, 21 years old. A lot of people are asking about his mental history. Maybe he had mental problems. So there really are people looking at this and saying there's a lot of hypocrisy here. And I'll just remind our viewers, in American history, the first terror law was actually for anti-black violence. It was a Ku Klux Klan, so white supremacist group, Control Act. That was back in 1871. We haven't used the word terrorism too much in the U.S. media since to qualify crimes against blacks, especially when it's a white suspect.